Welcome back. You're watching the Daily Report. You're still with Arnold Maliba. He is Head of Policy and Public Affairs at UDA, the United Democratic Alliance Party. Arnold, some questions here. Edwin Austin asks, kindly share with us 5 key achievements of the Kenya Kwanza government 2 years into office.
5 key achievements. First of all, we promised Hustler Fund that we actually delivered. We promised a remodeled funding system for higher education that we actually have achieved. We promised to bring in the new the CBC when it actually had become a little bit of a problem. We onboarded that particular element. We promised to do away with subsidies that we actually achieved. And then, of course, we promised to ensure that we have got an all-inclusive government. And you can actually see that at different points, even before this particular level, that for me, and you know, governance is an important thing. That's the reason why people wake up to vote. We actually have largely achieved that. So there's so much that we've actually done. We also promised to widen the tax net. We did. We have not deepened, we've only widened. We might not have communicated that so well, but we promised to widen, bring in as many people as possible in the tax net, and that we actually have done effectively well. You need to look at some of the revenues we've actually, the projections on some specific streams, specifically on Kenyans who actually are coming out to actually pay taxes, that we actually have done fairly well. So look at how we have actually balanced. We promised to stop the runaway debts for taking debt for overheads, for basic overheads, that we also have stopped. So we've balanced out quite a lot. There's been so much out there, and you can actually look at the programs. I think I've actually exceeded the 5 that he actually asked. Those were just top of my head. Yeah.
Edwin, you have your answer right there. Maliba, be honest, Emmanuel Naibei from Bondeni Gitale.
Yes.
Maliba, be honest, these kind of people are the ones misleading Kenyans. The truth is Ruto's ship was sinking in all directions. Ruto sought support of Raila, not willingly, but to save himself from Kenya-wide demos. You can't give 2 deputy ODM chairman, minority leader, and say they are not ODM.
My definition of ODM is that it's a political party established pursuant, first of all, to the Constitution, and secondly, to the Political Parties Act of 2011, and also amended in 2022. And I know what a political party is. So after Mbadi, Wandai, Joho, Oparanya, and Ascol, for example, came over to this other side, has ODM stopped being a party? No. It's still a party. Are they members of ODM as per law? No, they are not. Of course, there is that other aspect. Do we have a handshake? No, we don't have a handshake. Raila himself has actually said a lot of times, and for example, I am not yet worth, for example, to even add an extra word on Raila's statements. And Raila said he has extended a little bit of his experts to this other side. Are there Kenyans who actually feel happy that there are people who have actually crossed over to this other side? Yes, there are, and there are very many. So Naibei could be one of those people that do not feel persuaded. But I can tell you that you can actually find people, and there are lots of them, who actually tell you that they are happy that Mbadi is on board, that they are happy that Oparanya is on board, they are happy that Joho is on board. If you ask the women of Turkana, they'll tell you they are happy because Ascol is on board. There are quite a number of Kenyans who feel that is a good flair that comes in. So decisions in the public domain might never be as popular as ice cream would be. Even sometimes when you've got a cold, you might not love ice cream. So there's nothing that can taste sweet for all of us. On the day it does, probably we'll all be dead. We might not be alive. But so long as we are living and we've got preferences and we've got our mental faculties in place, we might never agree. But I see the most important thing that makes this particular conversation and makes governance important, that makes a republic, is having different viewpoints. The way Naibei puts it and the way I actually would put it on this side. And we don't have to draw daggers at each other. That difference of opinion is what makes democracy, is what makes national conversations important. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Mr. Julius Maranga from Kisii, Tabaka. ODM is full of government. Let our people standing Gen Z. Ndio watetezi wa Kenya. I think still.
And it's important that Gen Z should actually stand up and defend their own country. Okay. This country is theirs. And by the way, millennials and Gen Zs, as a people, as generations, those are going to be the first group of Kenyans to carry the biggest burden of national debt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for them to actually stand up and voice up the way they are doing. The one thing anyone should not tell you out there is that going out to voice your ideas and speaking out, that cannot be criminalized. We should not criminalize that. We should actually encourage that, so that then we move away from this notion that some 79-year-old man should be defending a nation when we have got 26-year-olds like Kasmuel, when we have got younger people in 30s, when we have got a lot more people who are more educated, more exposed, sitting out there and waiting on Raila, for example, to actually fight for them. Mm-hmm. So it's good that Gen Zs stand up. It's important. By the way, it's not that there is a vacuum when they actually stand up. That is the constitution we voted for. We gave people the power to go out there, participate in governance, not just at the voting level. This thing we speak about called public participation. Those demonstrations were public participation in governance. People didn't like a few things and they came out and spoke. Were they heard? Yes, they were. Mm-hmm. So it's fair that they be heard. They also allow some of us to be heard. For example, if they actually think they are using Article 37 to go out, they should also understand that they also have got a right under the same law to go out and voice support for what we think is right. So that is the republic. Mm-hmm. And going forward, the new republic that actually was birthed through this particular process is a republic where leaders will not just stay back and think they have got a monopoly on ideas. So even a people in governance, the people of Kenya are co-governors in their own country. Okay. There are no led and the leaders. All of us are co-leading. That is by the Constitution 2010. Never forget. So when you go out to speak out and ensure that the people in leadership do the right thing, you are doing your responsibility. Hili ni taifa letu na kufanya kile ambacho unafanya, including what Naibai is asking and Maranga from Tabaka is actually asking. It is part and parcel of you doing your rightful constitutional duty. So you are not doing anyone a favor. This business of thinking that somebody somewhere is supposed to be doing it for us, that Raila, for example, should be there speaking out for other people. The people who should be doing things for you are the people who are in government like we in Kenya Kwanza. You can ask us hard questions. Why haven't? Because you've given us, first of all, the legitimacy, you've given us the votes, and you've given us the power to charge taxes so that then we deliver public goods. Okay. So we are the people you put to question. But then asking somebody elsewhere to fight for you, what are you doing? A man in his 70s should not be fighting for 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and even in the military, we are picking 18, 19-year-olds. So 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds should not be there waiting for Raila. That is bad manners. Okay. Yeah.
So, Maringa, the gentleman seems informed. Why are students being classified by rich parents versus poor parents? We don't have poor students. All students are equal. HELP should give loans to every student. Students are the ones who will bear the burden of repayment, not their parents. For, into brackets, rich parents, let them pay. This is Habib Omar. I think this is in line with the university funding model. Yes. And it's a question, even as you answer, on the means testing tool, on how we redefine the population of the beneficiaries of this.
Habib asks a very important question, but can I ask you? Yeah. I will ask him back that what is a bursary? A bursary is an affirmative action. It's a social action to intervene where there are deficiencies. Remember, there are two parts to that, to the HELP product. There is a bursary, then there is their loans, right? So the bursary part of it is what we are coming in through for the students. Yes. And then the loan is that this is what we think you can actually carry by virtue that you actually are accessing a degree today, right? Now, as a country, can we afford to pay for all the students, for example? No, we cannot afford. We are lagging behind on so many. So we are using the resources we have, and we must come up with a tool to ensure that we spread this thing as equitably as possible. Again, when it comes to resources and access to resources, we can never say that we are all the same. We are not all the same. There are the people who actually have got much better access. Like, for example, let's just look at it this way. Judge, there's this problem in this country, that you'll find people who pay private school all through. Yes. Some of them are paying as much as 500,000 shillings per year, 600,000 shillings per year, 300,000 shillings per year. But when they get to university, all of a sudden they've become poor. Yet there is a student somewhere in a village who literally went to school 100% on bursaries. Their parents did odd jobs and everything else. It will be unfair that a child from Lavington and a child from a village somewhere who's actually going to school on a bursary are treated equally, especially when we have got many of these cases. So for it to be fair, we try to be as equitable as possible. Because let's be fair, and Abib knows this, not all of us are equal when it comes to access to resources.
Okay.
And a lot of these students, we are trying to ensure that we give everybody an equitable opportunity towards accessing quality education. Otherwise, if we were to, we would really love, by the way, to actually make it equal for everybody. But at this particular position, when resources are not sufficient, we go in for equity. If we go for equality, I could, for example, be able to afford to come here. And somebody else might not be able to come here. So what do you do if you want all of us here? You do not subsidize me, but you ensure that you subsidize the other one to come here.
Okay.
It's how we ensure that everybody has got a fair chance at being something in this life.
Okay.
So Abib must just understand that, first of all, as a country, we cannot afford to pay for everyone. And if we cannot afford to pay for everyone else, how do we ensure that the little that we have, we share out in a way that is actually equitable to ensure that everybody, first of all, gets an opportunity. But secondly, there is a big problem we've been trying to actually solve here.
Okay.
Universities have actually accumulated. The last time I checked, I think earlier this year, universities had in excess of 67 billion shillings in debt. Because somehow the old model was very much focused on the students and did not really care. So you look at this, somebody who's doing a BA, for example, will access the same facility as a person doing medicine or engineering. You understand that those two courses are different, and the cost of even administering those courses is not equal. But then somehow we actually had left that burden to the universities to devise their own way around it. What did they do in the end? First of all, they lowered the quality of education. Secondly, they put a heavy debt burden on universities. So our universities were collapsing. So how do we ensure that, first of all, we ensure access, and secondly, we also do not compromise on quality and then put universities in the situations they are already in? Is we come up with a model that, first of all, is reflective of market rates. Because we have got a lecturer here who is supposed to be paid the same way he is paid in a private university and a public university. So if we play with the way we were doing it, and I think the last time we had done that review, I think was in 1995, a little bit of we would play around with that and just play around that. And then the numbers of people going to universities has actually swollen. We actually now pivoting into CBC, for example. As we move towards that end, it becomes almost impossible to go the old way. So there were things that we were trying to fix. It's not like somebody is complicating this process just for purposes of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, that system is not perfect. Let's also accept. What I'm saying is, it's not that the system, remember that we are piloting it. It's not perfect, but it will be fine-tuned until it becomes perfect. There are a few places where, however scientific a tool is, it misses out on data. That is quite common.
Hello, yeah. Abigail from Embu. What does the government have to say about the untold suffering Kenyans have gone through under the insensitive economic strategies? And I will coin this with, these are people who do not feel very confident in terms of, the questions they ask about, the government that they believed in. Do you think there is that deficit of trust?
Of course, there is a trust deficit. Anytime you step out as a person who speaks for or of government, everything you say, people are using a magnifying glass to look at it, just to look at if there's a tinge of lie, something that looks like a lie. And even if they miss out a lie or an error in it, they will still get angry at the tone in which you speak. So they can get angry at your tone. They can even get angry at the gestures you are making when you speak it. It's a difficult thing to do, but then let's be honest. No one who is political goes out there to come up with an insensitive policy. George, and I want to tell Abigail from Embu that politicians love to be loved. If politicians could steal elsewhere, for example, go to space and steal and bring it here, they will do it to get elected. Everybody in government really wants to be re-elected. every politician wants to be loved. So no one goes out to come up with what she calls insensitive policies. Even as she says that, against what background are these decisions being made, for example? We have got an economic situation, for example, that we can no longer keep on talking about the previous government, the decisions made in the past. The collectivity of what government is that once you come in, you shoulder whatever decisions were done in the past. So there is the global situation.
Okay.
There's the global situation. Look at the markets across the globe. Things are not good. There's even a fear. There has been recessions in other places. Secondly, look at our national situation. We were expected to default this year. Earlier, that is last year, we were expected to default. We sorted that out. So against that difficult fiscal situation, we've tried to keep Kenya as a going concern.
By the way, what do you have to say about those who have argued that the Kenya Kwanza government is not building on the projects of the past regime?
Unfortunately, there is only one Kenya. And there are no Kibaki projects, there are no Uhuru projects, they are only Kenyan projects because they are funded by the taxpayer. So we cannot come in and, for example, purport to say that we cannot build on that. We have to complete the projects started because, first of all, it's Kenyan money. For example, if you refuse to work on a project that Uhuru Kenyatta, for example, was working on, Uhuru Kenyatta did not create that need. That need was there by virtue of data and situation and circumstance, if you choose to actually look at it that way. And he was responding to a problem, a Kenyan problem, using the strategies and thoughts he had at that particular point. If you find it midway, you complete. That is the rule. So that thinking and story is, I think, misplaced.
Okay.
First of all, we must agree that Kenyan problems do not come with presidential colors.
All right.
If people were going hungry during Kibaki's time, when Uhuru comes in, it doesn't magically just disappear. He has to keep on solving that. Our problems do not have political clothes. They do not have political branding. They even do not have regime, smell, feel, or color. Our problems are our problems. If you want access to education as a young person, it doesn't matter under whose regime that need becomes apparent. It has to be sorted. If you want food, the same way.
We're entering the home stretch. Cornelius has a couple of questions for you. Thank you so much for the show. Questions for our guest. One, why are they eyeing for additional Echo Levy tax when reports of KRA indicates increase in tax collection, but there is no employment in public service as a result? Where are these taxes going because you don't actually feel them?
First of all, you are feeling them. If you read, and Cornelius sounds like a guy who's actually because a number of people did not know that the strategies we put in place actually increased some streams of KRA's collections, for example. He is actually quite up to date. But Cornelius, if you keep up with public affairs, current affairs, as you sound in that particular question, you must actually have known that we were expected to have defaulted. So first of all, the first charge on the consolidated account of all we collect, first of all, for example, we are paying debts. And we've actually been paying as much as 7 shillings out of every 10 we collect. And probably to just bring this home, George, you need at least 1.1 trillion shillings to pay salaries in the public service, both at national and county level, 1.1 trillion. You will need around the same for debt. I've spoken about debt, I've spoken about salaries. Then the debt, you will need around the same. You will need 400 billion to actually, at least 435 billion shillings to give it to counties, whether it's the conditional grant or what, 400, and then of course there's that small complicated line around equalization fund, consolidated, whatever that is. You need at least 400 billion shillings put on that. Once you've done that, you need about 7 to 800 billion shillings for development. If you work out that against the revenues we are raising, we are talking about 2.3 trillion shillings. At least at max, we are doing not more than 2.3. Already we are talking about 3.2, I think, from the math I've actually given there. We are upwards of 3 trillion shillings. But here, the maximum we've collected is 2.3 trillion. So that's where then you get a fiscal deficit. With that particular deficit, then now that's how we end up again borrowing. A lot of times to service this, to complement that, to offer services, and to keep the country running as a going concern. So, the Echo Levy that he asks, I do not want to sound sarcastic, but I will tell this to Cornelius. If Kenyan roads were made with the technology that they could be in place for 1 million years, if we had a technology that actually ensures that potholes are self-sealing, if, for example, our roads were like snakes, they can do away once the top layer gets old, they can actually do away, they shell away and then come up with new. That question would make sense. Okay. If, for example, the roads, wherever he comes from, can actually self-tarmac, they realize that this is the 21st century, so the village, the roads in Mumias, in Matungu, where I come from, for example, I realized that, okay, we've been actually maram for a very long time. The farmers here, because they are doing cane, we need a little bit of bitumen, and then the roads can actually do that. It will be much easier. Okay. But we need that money because the cost of keeping the roads in the conditions they are has actually gone high. Okay. Secondly, we need money to build newer roads. All Kenyans are actually asking for it. It's become difficult. Secondly, there's the proportionality in sharing the burden. That all Kenyans, for example, pay money that actually end up here. But who are the people who, for example, are enjoying that? So when we try to balance that out, I know it's easy to single out a tax proposal, demonize it and run away with it. But then also we need to also explain to people that we have got roads that need maintenance. The cost has gone higher. Okay. Keeping these vehicles on the road is actually higher. We actually are also going green. And even as we go green, we also have to balance out. Okay, so there's so much to it. But it's just 50 billion shillings we are raising. And that 50 billion shillings is a whole lot of money. All right. Yeah. The president said those serving in public service and above 60 years should leave. Was it just a kawaida declaration from the president and nothing happened? Were they not giveaway for recruits of young people? Briefly, in 30 seconds, on that question of 60. George, I have worked in my life, apart from now the role I'm playing here, yes, and the one I played in a neighboring country. I have worked for and with young people most of my adult life. I have been a proponent of the older folk going home so that then younger people can get chances. I still stand by that. When the president made that declaration, he was talking about the mainstream public service where we actually have had people who have not exited and we were holding them on contract. The challenge, and no one is actually saying this boldly, today I'll tell you, that a lot of times now when you actually have gotten into a little bit of statecraft and you understand the reason why we keep some of these people, number one is for institutional memory. Some of them is for purposes of training the younger people that are coming in. Thirdly, we do not have money, sufficient money to pay off a lot of these guys. That's why we've held on a number of guys. I think at some point there were about 60,000 people who had gotten to that level and we were buying time around them. I don't want to say that we are holding them hoping that somehow they can actually be called home before we are required to pay them, but probably that could be a strategy. I don't want to be quoted out of context, but I will tell you, the cost of laying away some of these people could actually be more expensive than buying time, so that then the young people will actually eventually come in at some point. Okay. Unfortunately, no one argues against age and wins. Somehow age wins against all of us. Okay. Time beats all of us. So there's going to be worked around that. The president is working around that. So if we are having a problem with a few people appointed at the cabinet level, I think we didn't get the president's declaration properly. Okay. The president was speaking about the mainstream civil service, where we still have got a number of people. And the last time I checked, I do not know the numbers of now, and I can't speak for PSC, but the last time I checked, there was a time, I think, early last year, where there was a number floating around of about 60,000. But already people in the system, there are people to actually replace them. So I think retirement money, and it's actually expensive. It's not easy. It's not just like telling somebody, just show. People have dedicated their lifetime serving the republic. Pensions have to come as well. The pensions actually have to come in. It's expensive. Let's wind up with this last question. Why is that the government is just only focused on doctors and teachers' employment as only people on contracts? Don't they think there are many young people in different sectors who are also contractless and they are not heard? The government needs to wake up and go to the ordinary person and not listen to the big boys alone. President has forgotten the ordinary person that he climbed through to the top. Cornelius winds up. Cornelius, I think, I don't know whether that's his second or third question. Yeah, third question. First of all, I would actually support him. This country does not belong to doctors and teachers alone. But unfortunately, teachers are the biggest number of civil servants. If I talk about public officers, TSC has got the biggest number of that, just because, again, education is government's biggest expenditure, above
700 billion.
700 billion, that's about 0.7 trillion. So definitely, because a lot of what we are doing, we are providing free education, for example.
Yes.
We must have personnel to do that particular bit. So it's not that government is focusing on teachers alone, but government focuses on education, and it is important. Secondly, doctors provide a very important and integral service. At some point, for example, we had, I think, just about 7,000.
Yes.
Over time, with the new administration, we've actually brought in, I think, over 20,000 more. I don't have the numbers exactly, but then we've actually expanded. The service they offer is actually good. But then I want to tell Cornelius this. Can we also get over this idea that government is a provider of jobs?
Okay.
And actually get to the reality that governments should be small and lean and should be enablers. The reason why government provides some public goods, especially the limited ones where no one else has got the capacity. For example, who out there has got the capacity to offer affordable education to the people, to the children of Kenya?
Okay.
No one can do that except for government. So at the moment, when we are still at this particular level, government has to shoulder that burden. But perish the thought that government exists for purposes of employing people. We have done that mistake in the counties, and that is why some counties have become so difficult to run, because governors come in and the only thing they think about, they've turned counties into employment bureaus. A government should be an enabler so that then the private sector can actually rise, be able to perform and employ people.
And the Kenyan people will be still holding you to account to see that if this Kenya Kwanza government is going to be an enabler of all these things that you talk about.
Yes, that is what we are doing, and we've ensured that even where they propose changes, we are flexible enough. The president is listening, the government is listening. What I would actually say is that can we make this collaborative and not controversial? It should not be about us against each other. There's too much combating about it. When you speak, we hear you. Also give us a hearing. And the administration of public service, the administration of public management is no walk in the park. Allow me to finish on a very light note. That long time ago, the Lord God, I'm a Christian, so I'll use that example without offending any other person who might be believing in any other faith. But long time ago, the Bible says that God would actually pass by in the evening to do oversight, check on the creatures he actually had left in the Garden of Eden. But at some point, he chose to allow us to actually rule ourselves, and he gave us stewardship. So politics is not easy. Governance is not easy. If it were easy, there would be no country struggling today. And there is no single country without challenges. That means that this business is difficult. That is why we value your ideas, we value your thoughts, we value your questions. Just ask us. We are not fighting. We are having a conversation.
All right.
Yeah.
Indeed, and that's why we end up the Daily Report tonight. We've been speaking to Arnold Maliba, Head of Policy and Public Affairs in UDA Party. My name is George Maringa. Thank you so much for watching and staying with us. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another. The conversation continues online. Good night.